Amber gave us an early ride to the airport. Hawaii requires a negative COVID test 72 hours prior to entering Hawaii. Jill found a nice condo in a big complex in Kihei, across the street from the beach. However, rain was forecast for the entire week. Egrets love to follow mowers and dine on seeds and insects, while I sipped morning coffee on Arnold and I. This trip to Hawaii has brought up my MSA big time, mainly with stuff I can no longer do. Jill is taking on a lot too, all the driving, helping me with the things I can't do, and keeping a constant eye on me when I need help. What is it like for her? How did she feel about it? I'll ask her.
This trip was an abrupt realization about how much things have changed in the last year. I have markedly more responsibility now. I also feel a need to occasionally have some time alone where I can move at my own pace. The time in Hawaii felt like it was our last big trip.
We went to Big Beach at Makena State Park in Maui. I walked through the sand rather clumsily with hiking sticks, but getting in and out of the water, the 1-foot waves on the undertow knocked me down, and I rolled around pretty good in the surf before Jill helped me to stand up. I was able to get my balance, which I didn't pay much attention to until I no longer had it. Once I was in the water, I was okay, as long as I could occasionally touch bottom. I can no longer tread water, even though I can pedal a trike for 20 miles. My mask was taking in water, and I was swallowing a lot of it. I was starting to feel panicky and water over my head with lots of swells, but I calmed down, stuck my face in the water, and saw tropical fish swimming around before I got a face full of water in my mask. What is the meaning of human existence? I've been thinking about that often since MSA. Jill's guru, Baba Haridas, says that the purpose of life is, quote, to experience the world and be liberated from it, unquote. What does that mean exactly? How do I liberate from the world? My condition requires me to live in the present. Acceptance of the present in comparison to the past are the hard parts. Jill and I talked about this often during the trip. Today we went to the aquarium. The virtual reality movie was the highlight. Then we drove up country to CVS to get COVID tested for a flight to the Big Island. Testing was done by the loading dock and dumpster behind the store for $135 apiece. The location seemed more like a drug deal than a medical test. It was more expensive than the flight. Funny how roosters think they own every parking lot there. I felt very dizzy this morning. Doing my exercises helped, but not much. We went on a whale watching cruise today. Saw lots of baby whales. Moving about the boat, traveling in rough seas, is how I usually feel. Then, after the boat ride, we went to Lahaina to see the big banyan tree downtown. It brought back lots of memories. I shaved my beard and mustache off today, so my snorkeling mask would seal better and not leak. It was the first time they were shaved off in 2 decades. Jill has never seen me without facial hair. As we were talking later, Jill said I have balanced energy, which helps her, even with MSA. It rained the rest of the day. Great napping weather. There were flash flood warnings for Kihei. Rain was forecast all day. It was a rest day spent around the condo. Evening was very stressful, especially for Jill, trying to transfer COVID test results from a trusted partner CVS website to the Hawaiian state website so we can travel from Maui to Hawaii. States always award contracts to the lowest bidder, which usually means poor quality. The software was no exception. Poor Jill, trying her hardest to make it work so we can travel. We had time before our flight, so we went to the park next to the beach. We saw part of a baseball game, 20-some-year-olds in uniform, then said goodbye to Maui as we sat on the seawall, off to the airport. This was the first time I boarded a plane as, quote, anyone with disabilities, please board first, unquote. That's me. We sat delayed on the runway for a while longer, then taxied to another runway because the wind shifted. We could have taxied to Hawaii in that time. We went through bureaucratic hell at the airport. COVID is going to kill me. Not the virus, but the stress from all the bureaucratic red tape. Then we waited for a long time for a rental car. Got a Chrysler with Corinthian leather seats. Car was so stereotypical. It gave us a lot of laughs. I was a handicapped old person with a big car, with a short driver who can barely see over the hood. Jill got us a very comfortable condo by the ocean. We then drove to a great snorkeling beach nearby. Had a hard time walking over flat, smooth rocks to get in the water. Jill helped me. Visibility was great. Lots of different kinds of fish. Best of all, my mask didn't leak. I could snorkel for long periods of time without my mask filling up with water. And the water was the perfect temperature so I could stay in without getting cold. Today we stayed close to home. Swam in the condo pool, had lunch at an Indian dosa food truck. In the evening we walked along the cliffs and saw turtles eating algae off rocks, and had a light dinner outdoors by the beach as we watched a beautiful sunset. We drove to Anaeho Omalu Beach that Amber recommended. It was a great beach that had it all. Sandy bottom for swimming, reef for snorkeling, shade, and close by facilities. We had lunch at a table right on the beach. I had coffee and one of the biggest pieces of coconut cake that I've ever eaten. Later, we visited a nearby historical site, the Kings Highway. It was surrounded by a golf course and luxury condos. Kings and developers both liked the location. We realized that this might be the last day in Hawaii if MSA progresses at this rate, so we decided to stay another 4 days. We had a virtual visit with Dr. Marita, my MSA doctor. Then we drove south to a national historical park that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. This is an ancient site where people took refuge to be protected by their gods. Royalty also lived there. Do you think their gods were trying to tell us something about life? We then drove a few miles to a hippie village on a one-lane road, bought some yummy homemade treats, had lunch, then back to the local beach next to the park for okay snorkeling in calm water. I saw a lot of people snorkeling farther out, but I couldn't get there. After checking out of our nice condo, we spent the day at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. The drive to the park was long, but the scenery was spectacular. Traffic was stopped while tow trucks retrieved the car that drove off a windy road in the jungle. It looked bad. Then we passed through a very neat, perfect-looking town that seemed like it was out of a Stephen King story. The Kilauea Rim Trail and road were partially closed due to recent volcanic activity, but we did get to see into the Kilauea caldera from the very windy and chilly north side. The east side was protected by jungle and was way less windy. This is the Kilauea Iki Crater Trail. Jill, Wes, Darren, and Darren's brother Dwayne crossed this same trail about 30 years ago. When we got back, we checked into the half-price new place. You get what you pay for. It smelled like Lysol and mildew. Tired and hungry, we couldn't find a place to eat. Did we make a mistake by staying longer? This was supposedly a day of rest. We walked a fair distance to a restaurant for breakfast. We started walking uphill to CVS to pick up an emergency prescription of Flomax because the salt tablets I take in this humidity dissolve the capsule coating, causing the contents to spill out. When we got back, Jill lubricated the sticking screen door and made a handle from a Ziploc bag to close the screen door more easily. Nice job, Jill. Jill also found us a reservation for dinner and did some shopping at the farmer's market. We sat on the beach and watched another glorious sunset. We're going to try kayaking today. I think my balance will be okay, but we'll find out. We paddled out of the harbor mouth, and seas were rough, with fairly large swells. Too much for me, so we turned back and paddled around in calm water. But we did get our exercise, lugging a two-person kayak 2 to 3 blocks to the water, then back again. I might be in the MSA Hall of Fame. We went to the beach for another beautiful sunset. This is our last full day in Hawaii. We went snorkeling at our favorite spot. That evening, we had an early dinner reservation at an open-aired place right on the water. Our cheap, small studio room turned out to be a nice place after all. It was a great location within walking distance of the beach and restaurants. The grounds were attractive. The plumeria were in full bloom and very fragrant. Sitting on the deck was very pleasant. Even a lizard was hitting on Jill. We went to the beach to enjoy our last sunset in Hawaii.
Dueling frogs. There's Dave.
Today we leave. Lunch with the lizard and time to go home. It was a bittersweet trip. Maybe the last time for me.